let me know when we're okay. I don't know what that means. Okay, I'm live. All right, so hi and welcome to the slightly delayed Umbraco upgrade webinar. We had a few technical issues. A few people didn't have the link. We had the very clever idea to reboot the firewall in the business just before we're about to do a live Q&A, but that's live. I was going to say television. That's live life for you. So thank you for joining us. We'll get back on track. If anyone turns out to have missed this, we're going to put this on YouTube. So if your colleagues have to go into meetings or anything like that, you can share it with them. And other than that, we're back to normal. So we'll start. So I think Morgan, you're going to introduce us. Is that right?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just getting this to go live. Perfect. So. Okay, hello again, everyone, and welcome to today's session again. So thank you so much for joining and making this new link. So this is the upgrade, the Umbraco upgrade live Q&A. So before we get started, I want to go through a bit of housekeeping with you. So on the right-hand side of your screen, there should be a Q&A section where you can type in your questions and submit them to us for answers. If you feel like you feel uncomfortable and you don't want to have your name attached to the question, there's a little tick box which makes you anonymous when you ask your questions if you would prefer. So let me also introduce ourselves. So I'm Morgan, I'm an intern at Clarkswell. We have Zeb, our technical chief officer. We have Paul, who is our Umbraco MVP. We have Sasha, who is our chief of staff, and we have Saskia, who is our marketing intern. Oh, sorry, executive. Apologies. So for this session, we have designed an agenda for how this webinar will be set out. So firstly, we'll introduce Clarkswell, so who we are and who our clients are. And then we'll give you a quick update on the date of the Umbraco 7 end of life, so then everyone's aware of what that date is. And then we'll move on to our commonly asked questions, looking at different versions of Umbraco, the migration process, and the timelines with Zeb, Paul, and Sasha. And then we'll move on to our Q&A section. But please feel free to send in questions at any point during this. You have a question when we're speaking, drop it in and we'll get round to it. So I'm going to pass it on to Saskia. Ooh.
Hello, can we hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing. So hello everyone. As Morgan said, my name is Saskia. Thank you guys for being here with us and being very patient. I will be talking briefly about us here at Clarkswell. Clarkswell is an award-winning digital agency. We're based in London Bridge. We have over 25 years of experience and we are an Umbraco Gold partner. And we basically build dynamic and high-performing digital experiences. Our extensive experience and a wide range of technical expertise allows us to take businesses to new heights. So you can see here some of our clients. We work with a broad range of public and private organisations across multiple sectors, such as finance, construction, government sites, education, and many, many more. Some of our clients, such as CIPD, have been with us for over 20 years. So yeah, big long-term partnerships are very dear to us. But let me tell you about why we're all here. So because the time has come, everyone. Umbraco users are finally going into the future. We are going to explain to you what the changes are and answer your questions concerning anything around Umbraco. So the date of Umbraco 7 end of life is finally with us, and it is the 30th of September this year. But we will be discussing what it means for Umbraco 7 users further in our commonly answered questions bit. So I'm going to be handing it over to Sasha to get us started.
Great.
Thank you. No worries.
Thank you. Okay, so what we've decided to do is we've kind of bunched the questions into some broad categories. We're just going to talk a bit about Umbraco versions, about some questions specifically around migration, and then we're going to talk about timelines. Obviously, we just welcome your questions throughout. We'll be keeping an eye out for them, and hopefully we'll get to them as we go, but we might actually just deal with a whole bunch of them at the end. So feel free to start sending those questions in. So, right, I think that we don't need the slides anymore, so let's get going into the questions. The first one is obviously, does it matter which version of Umbraco you're on? Because we're talking all upgrades here, but which ones matter at this stage? And I think I'll go to Paul for that one.
Yeah, so at the moment, if you're on lower than Umbraco 7, then you really do need to think about upgrading away from Umbraco 7, because that is actually going to be out of support from Umbraco. So they're no longer going to be releasing security updates for that. And the different versions that you may be on, so you could be on 6 or 4 before that, or you could be on 8, which is still in long-term support until 2024, and Umbraco 10 is the current latest long-term support version, which when it was released, it gets 3 years of long-term support. There is also a V11 out as well, but it does matter which version you are on, and the best versions at the moment I would say is 8 or 10 for their long-term support.
Okay, brilliant. And in terms of people who are moving to 10, so what's exciting about 10? What sort of new features and what's going to be different for the people who are moving to 10?
Hi everyone. Yeah, so there's a lot of features that have been added since the version 7. And there were things like the block list that were added in version 8. There were some multilingual features added in version 8 also, and there are things like the block grid editor, which has been added in version 10, and that's a really compelling editing feature that would really help you in the way you deal with content management systems in the future.
And so those things, block things, what does that mean? How does my team need special training? What's the impact going to be internally on moving to Umbraco 10 then?
So Umbraco 10, if you're already used to Umbraco 8, then you'll be used to the layout of Umbraco 10. It does differ slightly from Umbraco 7, where the sections in Umbraco 7 go down the left-hand side, and then you have your tree menu and your dashboards and tabs on the right-hand side. You still do have all of that sort of way of navigating around and using Umbraco. However, the sections go across the top now from version 8 onwards. If you've been using Umbraco before, then it's still as user-friendly and more accessible nowadays, and even better to use. So if you're used to Umbraco, you probably won't need any extra training. If you're not used to Umbraco, then you might want some basic editor training, and we could provide that, or you can, I think, also get that from Umbraco themselves.
Okay, and everyone keeps talking about this being quite a big upgrade. Why go to 10? Why not just go from 7 to 8, which seems closer somehow?
Yeah, so going to version 10 is it's a lot better. It's a lot better option because it's roughly the same effort as going to version 8. There's no point in you going to version 8 and then having to upgrade again. Also, the other thing about this is that version 10 obviously has better, newer features than version 8. It's a lot faster, and it's just better all around. It's much more future proof. To upgrade from version 10 to version 11, say, is much easier than going from version 8 to version 11. So you're going to be in a much better place with version 10.
Okay, and what about version 11, which I can see on the chart and everything? Why not just jump straight to 11 then?
So version 11, I think the biggest reason for not that I wouldn't just recommend anybody to just go to version 11 is because it's got a much smaller support window than version 10. So version 10 will be supported for around 3 years, whereas version 11 will be supported only for about 1 year. And so unless there's a really burning feature in 11 that 10 doesn't have that you really need, I would say just stick with 10 because you've got a really solid platform there. You're going to get updates for the next 3 years. A lot of our clients will go to version 10 instead of version 11.
Okay, and given this is quite a tricky upgrade for a number of our clients, a big leap from 7. Is this going to keep happening? What can you tell us a little bit about the future upgrades? Is it going to be a bit smoother? If the people are a bit tentative.
Yeah, so basically, when you're coming away from version 7 and 8, they're on .NET Framework, and we're moving to .NET Core. And so once you got onto V9, which wasn't long-term support, that was just like a vehicle to get you to V10, which is long-term support. Once you're on that, the upgrade path is a lot smoother. You're already using .NET Core architecture. You're already using things like that. So it's they're like minor upgrades basically between the new major versions.
Okay.
They've got a 6-monthly cadence of new major versions, but actually they're being designed to be a lot smoother going forward when you do upgrade.
Phew, what a relief, isn't that good? So tell me about things like the question that we always get asked is, do I have to do a redesign? Is this an upgrade that means I'm going to have to trash everything?
You don't have to do the redesign. If you really love your current UI and UX, we can simply take that across into the new version, and we've done that in a recent project. But it is a very big opportunity for you if you are thinking of doing a UI change in the future. There's no point in us migrating you, and then you would have to then redo it in the future again. So it's not an efficient way of doing it. If you are thinking of changing your UI anyway, you may as well do it as part of the upgrade.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about hosting? Does that have to change if I'm upgrading?
Not necessarily. So most hosting providers, at least the major ones like Azure, AWS, and things like that, they will support ASP.NET Core anyway. You might be hosting it on a virtual machine, and you might be self-managing. So you might have to install the hosting bundles to enable .NET Core hosting, but if it's managed for you, you could probably just request that of your hosting provider anyway, to let them know you're going to be moving to a .NET Core website. Can you make sure it can be hosted on my VM or something like that?
Okay. And Zeb talked a little bit earlier about some of the new features on Umbraco 10. Is it going to be faster? People keep talking about it's going to be faster. Will it make websites go faster?
It is faster. I can tell you from experience, it's a lot faster than the previous versions. I think one of the key reasons is that it's running on the .NET Core, i.e. .NET 6 and .NET 7. They're much faster, and they're actually cross-platform as well. And they're really I've seen the difference in the performance for sure.
Okay. And so what exactly is going to be affected by making this upgrade change? Like, can you be more specific so that people who are maybe a bit worried and haven't started planning yet, what parts of their website will be affected by this?
Okay, so if you're going from version 7 to version 10, what's going to be affected is it's going to be the whole framework underneath is going to change from .NET Framework to .NET Core. Or just .NET. So the actual web framework that we're using is changing. The database will change as well, and the views on the front end to be able to render everything that will change. The actual styles and CSS and JavaScript and things, they don't need to change the UI of it itself, but most of it is going to change in this upgrade from coming away from .NET Framework to going to .NET Core and being ready on version 10.
Okay. Right. Okay. Let's move on to the next topic, which is migration. So should we just talk a little bit about, maybe Paul, you can start us off about talking about migrating content first.
Yep. So if you've got a small site, and let's say we were doing the full migration going from version 7 to version 10, then if it's a small site and there aren't too many changes in terms of property editors and everything is compatible, it can either automatically just work on the new site in terms of we have tools that we can pull the content from there and put it into 10. That might go well. If you've got lots of complicated editors and things like that, we might need to, we do have the tools available to be able to change to make it work in the V10, because some things are considered legacy now. So we have to look at the old legacy property editors and convert them for you. We can do mass content imports and all sorts of things like that. So you could either edit it manually if you don't have much content, or we could automatically pull it across, or we could do a longer way of step-by-step base upgrades and try and keep it going for you. But a lot of the time there will need to be some changes to fix that content to make it work in the V10.
Okay. And then, so this is a little bit about the redesign question, but this is a bit deeper. Should people be thinking about a complete rebuild, or should they just be doing a migration if they're moving off 7?
It depends on their situation. Some of our clients, it's really important for them to retain that existing functionality. It's sometimes for legal reasons they have to have certain information available on their website, and they don't want to risk changing that. And I think in those cases, a migration is a very good option for them, and they can tweak things later as they go along in small increments. Whereas for other people who maybe have had their business logic there for a while and their designs for a while, then I would say it's a golden opportunity to start again and think about what you really need, because the technology has moved on quite a lot since version 7. So there are probably ways in which we can solve your problem much better now than they were solved in version 7. So we can reimagine all of that.
Okay, and then the perennial question again that comes up with this is it best to do a sort of proof of concept first, or just go for the big bang? Do you guys have a view on that?
So for simple websites that just content and views, there probably isn't a need for proof of concept. We could just go straight for the upgrade. Sometimes some of our clients have very complicated business logic. They have some integration with the third-party systems. They have, there's some uncertainties that we want to iron out to know exactly what needs to be done. And I think in those scenarios, it's actually priceless to do that, to like a 1-week proof of concept, which will actually answer all those questions for us.
Yeah. Okay. Right, let's move then on to timelines. Obviously, the clock of doom is ticking on Umbraco 7. I imagine there are some people who are on this call who are starting to sweat a little bit. So we've kind of had the when, which is basically the end of September. So I mean, what happens? What happens if people don't upgrade in time? What is everything going to fall over and explode? What's the reality of the situation?
So if you don't upgrade by the September deadline, your website will still work. It's not like it's going to stop all of a sudden. The difference is that if you're not receiving any security updates, which for most people that would be the case, if you're not receiving those security updates, then hackers could target your version of Umbraco and try to hack you, and that's not a good thing. However, Umbraco have provided another option in recent times for customers who potentially want to pay for the extra, security measures, things like that. But it's a lot of money. It's like £18,000 a year, I believe, and it's it's money much better spent on rebuilding the site and new features rather than spending it just on getting security patches.
Okay, and then so again, the clock is ticking. So how long will it take to upgrade? Presumably, there will be some smug customers who started this about 6 months ago. But I mean, how long does an upgrade take? I mean, is there time, and what sort of timelines should people be considering at this stage?
It depends on how much business logic they have in their existing website. If their website is very simple and it's just content that just get output to a page and displayed, it may not be take as long to upgrade as a website that has a lot of payment systems and there's like lots of business logic inside there and lots of detailed things in there to migrate. So the more they have currently, the longer it will take.
Okay, and so the kind of people who perhaps are in a bit of panic up against this deadline, can they do a phased approach? Is that something that you'd recommend, or how would a phased approach to upgrading work?
Yeah, a phased approach would be a good idea, because you could get the benefit of, just like, let's say if we was to do like a rebuild as such. So we could start on your new site. We could build features of your existing site into your new site, and then we can release that. So an example where I previously worked, we did a a new version of the site, and we started releasing different sections at a time. So we built the blog section, which was lower risk if anything went wrong. It was just a blog. It wasn't the customer facing like forms filling out, the leads and all of that. It was just literally the blog. So we were able to release the blog portion of the site would come from the new version of the site, and then the rest of the site came from the V7 site. And that's how we were able to then introduce different sections at a time, and we can target those sections. Right, that comes from the new V8, V10 site, and that can come from the V7. And you just phase it in. It gives the people time to get used to using the new version of Umbraco. We can find bugs and fix those without it having too much of an impact, and it really does help you get an immediate benefit straight away from the speed of those pages and things like that. So it is a very good idea to do a phased approach if you have a large site with lots of different customizations and things like that.
Okay, brilliant. All right. I think that means that we've come to the end of the questions that were submitted before the event, which means we can go to the live Q&A. We've got some questions here. One of them is about the business value from upgrading from 7 to 10 instead of just going to 8. I mean, Zeb, you discussed this a little bit earlier on. If we could just talk about again a little bit about that difference, and perhaps a little bit about of the kind of the timelines of support around 8 as well, perhaps. So can I hand over to you to start that off, and then I'll
sure.
yeah.
So version 8 I think is supported till 2024, and I think version 10 is supported for a bit longer than that. I would say it's a no-brainer from my point of view that you go to version 10. In terms of like, if you talk about business value, version 10 runs on .NET Core versions, which are like .NET 6, .NET 7. They can run on Linux servers, for example. They can result to cheaper hosting, for example. Better performance, cheaper hosting. It's much better. It's a much better option. Version 8, I would not recommend that, because it just means that you're going to have to do another upgrade, a big semi-big upgrade in the future. And I'm just thinking in terms of saving money in the long run. You're not going to save much money really by going to version 8, but you're definitely going to spend more money in the future.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, we've got a couple more questions. The question, headless. Is it headless? Who wants to? Zeb, do you want to talk about headless? Yeah, and Umbraco.
Yeah, sure. So there are headless features coming in version 12, and that's going to be around the summer of this year. I think June this year we're going to get version 12, and we saw actually a demo of it recently, and I was very excited by it. However, it's just bear in mind that it is going to be an early version of headless. They're going to obviously make incremental improvements to it over time. So if you really needed headless features, yes, we can, build it on version 11, or by the time we finish the project, it might be version 12 already. We can do that small upgrade and get that ready for you. And I think that it does open up some great opportunities for utilizing headless. There's say if you wanted to create a mobile app, then you could easily just connect to the headless APIs from Umbraco, and without having to do much work, and just have all that content being consumed in other places. You can even have them in satellite sites as well, a bit of information flowing to other systems. So it's a very compelling, good feature. I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, I'm just looking through the next questions. We have one about personalization. Can I throw the one at you, Paul?
Yeah, so as far as I know, with regards to personalization and Umbraco trying to move towards being a composable DXP, buzzword for you there.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
that's all right. Yeah, so basically what there are packages out there, third-party packages, and one of the best ones for that is one called Marketing Suite, and that's by another gold partner agency called Perplex, and that allows you to do the personalization so that you can show different content for different users based on their browsing history and things like that. So yeah, you can do personalization, and that is available on Umbraco 10.
Okay, thank you. I've got one more question here, which is about budget, which I think I probably won't throw at you guys, but what it might be quite useful to talk about though is when someone's saying a small website upgrade, how would you kind of categorize what would be a small site, as opposed to, you know, what would that mean in terms of, like, if you could sort of give us a clue then whether or not something would be straightforward, or how complex things become and when they become complicated.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So for me, a small website is a site that doesn't have too much business logic in there other than to just display content on pages. The amount of content you have actually doesn't really matter, because let's say even if you had say 1,000 pages under one thing, it's for us to migrate that using our tools is the same effort as if it was 200 pages, you know. So the actual amount of content doesn't really matter. The amount of different types of content may matter. So you say if you had, say you had 50 templates, and we have to migrate each one, and it's got slight differences between them, then yes, obviously we'll be doing more work than migrating 20 templates. So for me, I think around 10 to 20 templates. Content doesn't really matter. I don't think in this the amount of content you have. But yeah, as long as you don't have like custom business logic where you need people to log into your website, fill in a form, their records are saved, and all of that kind of workflow, then it's probably considered a small kind of lightweight website.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
lovely. All right, any more? I don't think there are any more questions. I can't see any more in the chat. So I think that brings us to the end. Obviously, if you do have questions that you'd like to send us, you can send them to us here at hello@clarksworld.com. We'll be happy to answer them. I think the person who was talking about budget, best to take that offline, but we'd love to hear from you about that. And I think that wraps us up. Are you going to sign us off, Morgan? Is that how we finish?
That was actually me.
Okay, all right. Go, Saskia.
So we hope you enjoyed this webinar and it's been very informative and we've answered your questions. If you have any other questions or queries, we encourage feedback after these sessions. So yeah, feel free to get in touch. Don't hesitate for a free health check or a little chat with us about Umbraco plans. And yeah, please email us at hello@clarksworld.com, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you for coming.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.